Welcome, I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 779, written by Amanda Can 77, When Aliens Leave Their Mental Mark. Growing up in the 90s, I was exposed to a fair amount of aliens in the media, movies and TV like Independence Day, Men in Black, Mars Attacks, E.T., X-Files, Invader Zim, Alf, Third Rock from the Sun, you name it. I can't remember anyone in my family ever taking any sort of particular interest in aliens, but they were always sort of around. I don't know if this media is why, or maybe it was my parents' open attitude towards the subject, but I never questioned the existence of aliens. I knew stories about people being abducted and crop circles, but I didn't feel like it presented any sort of immediate danger. I never considered myself to be afraid of them, until my mom started asking me about it one morning, that is. I've always been a sleep talker, well, more of a sleep mumbler, but when I was 9 or 10, I started sleepwalking as well. My parents would find me in the living room or the hallway trying to incoherently accomplish something. Most of the time, they could just guide me back to my bed without incident. On one occasion, though, it wasn't so simple. When my mom came to check on me before she went to sleep, she saw I wasn't in my bed. She came into the room to look for me and noticed a small figure crouched in the closet. She asked me what I was doing and came closer to help me back into bed. As she started to approach, I guess I started crying, mumbling about aliens and, sorry this is gross, peeing on the floor. She was shocked and called for my dad to come help her. When he arrived, he tried to pick me up to comfort me, but I started screaming and hit him in the face, something I have never done before and haven't done again since. They had to let me cry myself out, mumbling, "The aliens, and don't take me again," over and over until I would let them help me. My mom said she doesn't think I ever really woke up because I didn't say anything as she changed my pajamas and tucked me back in. The next morning, when she asked me if I had had the dream about aliens, I didn't know what she was talking about. I had no recollection of anything that had happened the night before. She asked me if being abducted by aliens was something I worried about often, and I honestly told her it wasn't. My parents never made a big deal about the occurrence, they just wanted to make sure that I was alright, but I was pretty embarrassed. Since I had no memory of the event, I wasn't left with any fear of aliens while I was awake. But I was left with a burning curiosity as to whether they would be back. Case notes for file 779, When Aliens Leave Their Mental Mark. So yeah, X-Files is the MVP of all science fiction shows. It's where it all started for me, and I think for most people. You know, it branches out from there. Of course, Stargate and Star Trek. Star Trek might be more iconic and maybe more relevant, I guess. X-Files is just the root of it. It really sparked my desire to, I want to believe. And of course, Deep Voice and Smoking Man. Such iconic characters. You cannot get over them. And you know, it's curious. I've never felt that aliens are a threat either. I mean, there's just a logical application to that. If they were a direct threat to our entire species or world, we'd already be dead. They could just divert an asteroid into the planet, release a deadly virus, whatever. So many methods to wipe us out without us even knowing we're under attack. Now, it's possible there's other nefarious means, you know, maybe they're cultivating us to harvest our meat or something, like some giant cattle farm. I don't think it's that either. But yeah, if there's aliens around, I think they're probably either neutral or benevolent. Probably just keeping their distance, observing, seeing where we go, maybe giving us a helping hand here and there. And of course, there could be different types of aliens. It's probably not just one species. So I've never sleepwalked myself. I've always found it fascinating in people who do. Now I do think that as we sleep, our subconscious and conscious minds, they're intermingling together, trying to analyze the day's events and parse it together, decide what to keep, store in long-term memory. If we don't sleep, basically our brains just become fragmented and lose sense of reality. You can see this in people who don't sleep. They start to hallucinate, they can't make sense of the world anymore. Our brains basically, they don't need to rest, they need to configure. Yeah, because the world is just so complicated. Our brains are constantly filtering out information, but they're still taking some in, and they need to make sense of it. So it is possible that you have a repressed memory, or you had it even back then as a kid, of some sort of alien abduction. and you don't consciously know of it, but your subconscious does. So when you're sleepwalking in the dream state, your conscious and subconscious are communicating back and forth, and little fragments of that repressed memory that's buried deep inside your brain is spilling over. And while you're not consciously aware when you're awake, in that dream state, it does terrify you. Even if the aliens don't mean you any harm, it's still traumatic to be abducted. There's no getting around that, I'd say. Case file number 780, written by theredmolly, the very confused umbrella. 4 years ago, during the spring, we bought our house. My wife and I purchased an umbrella and a base from Wayfair for our back deck. The umbrella had a crank handle to open and close it. The handle has a sticker that has a blue arrow pointing in the clockwise direction to open it. It has a red arrow pointing in the reverse, counterclockwise direction to put the umbrella down. About a month ago, I went away for a few days while my wife stayed home. When I got home, I went right to the backyard to sit out and relax and noticed that the umbrella controls were backward. Now, to open the umbrella, you had to turn the handle counterclockwise. It even read so on the sticker. The blue arrow was now facing counterclockwise and the red arrow was facing clockwise. I noticed this right away because as I went to crank it clockwise, the umbrella would not open out and nothing happened. I thought, that's weird. I always crank it this way to open it. I called my wife outside and asked her if she messed with the umbrella while I was away. But there's no way in hell she could have altered the sticker. No way. It's a shiny sticker that was obviously made during the manufacturing process, and there's no way she could have made a duplicate sticker or anything like that. She obviously said no, and I showed her the issue with the umbrella and asked her if I was going crazy, if the umbrella had always been like this. I said, I know, for the last 4 years I've had to crank that thing clockwise to open it. What the hell is going on? Her and I were dumbfounded, like I really had no idea how this happened. A couple days went by, and the umbrella is now back to the way it was. Blue arrow facing clockwise to crank open, red arrow facing counterclockwise to close. It has stayed that way since, but no explanation was found. Case notes for file 780, the very confused umbrella. So the fact that this sticker and directions reverted back is what's mind-blowing to me. If it was just a one-off event, then you could say, okay, it's quantum immortality, even for the both of you, you and your wife. That in of itself is pretty wild, but the fact it reverted back, well, did you jump 2 universes in the span of a few days? I don't think so. What could have changed it? I mean, it can't be some entity. Like, imagine a spirit is trying to prank you, this Loki trickster. How would he manufacture or print out a brand new sticker to put on the umbrella? I don't see that happening. That'd be pretty impressive. Has some contacts in the industrial sector. Very impressive. I guess the one possibility is that someone bought a look-alike umbrella that did have the opposite instructions to open and close the umbrella, and somehow snuck into your yard, your backyard, and put it in there, and then changed it back, and then never told anyone about it. Why? It's theoretically possible, but I can't wrap my mind around why anyone would do that. I'm stumped. Pretty neat little glitch. I like it. Bonus file, written by Johnny B. 1917. The Fatal Dream. My best friend and I would always talk about crazy dreams we had. Never thought much of it until he told me about one where he got hit by a car and died. We were about 15 to 16 when he told me about the dream. We were into conspiracies, stuff like aliens, paranormal, lucid dreaming, so we'd talk about stuff like that a lot. And he died right before he would have turned 20. He said he was riding a skateboard wearing all black when the car hit him and could see everyone at his funeral. He even said his crush was at his funeral and laughed about it. He just kept going on about how it was so real, and it really shook me up until eventually I forgot about it. Then, a few years later, after I'd long forgotten about the dream he told me about, it happened for real. His crush was at his funeral. He did get hit by a car and died. He was wearing all black like in the dream, his work clothes, and he was riding my skateboard. It was all true. I still don't know what to make of it all. Every single detail I remember from his dream came true, and I'm sure there's parts of it he told me that I don't remember. I felt crazy. I didn't tell anyone about it. I just don't know why or how he saw it happen in his dreams. And think, what if he had never told me about it? It just left me with so many questions. But I guess now I have proof, at least to myself, that our souls go on after we die. I just wish I knew why he experienced that dream and told me about it. Like there had to be some kind of reason. I just think about how I wouldn't believe this story if I hadn't experienced it for myself. Case notes for the bonus file, The Fatal Dream. So yeah, we come back to premonitions, foretelling of the future. I'm always a bit stumped and honestly unsure of what to say exactly because I know that the future is going to happen. There's paths laid out and traced. It's up to us to decide which path we follow. The thing is, every choice that other people make will influence where we end up. Our choices matter tremendously, of course, but other people's choices and the forces of the universe that we can't predict will matter. This churn is chaos. It's unpredictable by nature. We can't even predict the weather to more than a few days, and even then there's uncertainty. Because even the tiniest change, this is one thing I've always found fascinating about weather, and just physics in general. You can't predict weather accurately more than a few days, because even the tiniest change in temperature in, say, Kansas, of being like 56.98991 degrees versus 56.9912, if it's off by a fourth of a digit, that tiny, seemingly insignificant difference in one area can affect everything going into the future, especially as you go further into the future. I mean, that's sort of related to the butterfly effect. In fact, it's directly related. That's the whole point of it. Tiny changes can make predicting the future almost impossible, and these tiny changes happen all the time. There's just no way to predict it. How much energy the sun is inputting varies slightly, and the same thing applies to all of our lives. There's so many choices being made that we cannot know, and even if we did, we couldn't predict them. And if you get right down to the very essence of it, even if you knew the position of every atom and the velocity, you couldn't predict it then because you can't know the position of an atom and its velocity. Even knowing its exact location is virtually impossible. We wind up here where it should be, in theory, impossible to predict the future, especially if you're going out like 4 years in this case. So how is that happening? All I can say is, he predicted a possible future. Maybe your friend predicted this in every single universe. And again, there's almost an infinite amount of universes. In the multiverse theory, every single possible branching path from every interaction of every atom and source of energy is creating a new universe. There's not infinite, but it might as well be infinite by our standards. In every copy of every universe, your friend predicts his death in the same way. And in only a few of them is it actually accurate. It's sort of like tossing a quadrillion Googleplexes of dice, and eventually you just hit natural 20s, a trillion times in a row. It's extremely unlikely, but that's my only real way to frame this and how it's possible.